Hey everybody, and we're back here on Inside the Ropes, and we are joined by AEW's newest, hottest tag team ahead of tonight's Fyter Fest Night 2 and the big 8-man tag. It is, of course, Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood, FTR. Guys, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. We're always glad to come on and get to do these interviews, so appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Well, I mean, let's just get started with, obviously, you've done loads of interviews already about leaving WWE, but I want to talk about joining AEW. When did you guys figure out this was going to be the destination for you? What thought process went into that? Can you guys just kind of take us through how it came about?
I think that for us, we knew for a while. We didn't know if AEW was going to be our home, and we're still not 100% sure if this is going to be our forever home. But we knew for a while that we had to get out of WWE. They treated us very well. Monetarily, I got to take care of my family through everything WWE gave us. But I think that myself and Cash knew that if we wanted to leave the legacy that we had in mind, we needed to get out of the WWE.
Yeah, like you said, we haven't officially signed anything long-term yet because we're just excited to have these opportunities, and we have choices, and we have these options that we weren't always sure we were going to have. And, he said it. They treated us very well. We did very well there. We had 6 great years. We made good money, so we don't have to worry about all our bills and mortgages and stuff like that. We get to pick and choose now. That's kind of what you work for in all of this. You work so you can set yourself up and have the life that you want and the career that you want. And I think for a while we knew that AEW had a tag division that we had to be a part of at some point. There's just too many good teams there. There's too much talent there. There's too much potential there for us to not want to be there. You see it from the outside looking in, and you know how much potential is there for everybody, and you have to be part of that.
I mean, you guys join AEW, and I feel like, obviously there's a lot of real world stuff going on with COVID, which is really important. We don't want to diminish any of that, but I feel like wrestling has lost a lot of the big pops this year that were going to take place, with you guys debuting, Matt Hardy, etc. How have you guys adapted to kind of the lack of a live crowd and having people within the company kind of be in the crowd for now? How have you adapted to that, going from massive arenas of people?
I think, for us, it is difficult. It's a difficult transition. But, man, when you love professional wrestling and you love what you do, you ultimately do everything for that moment. You do everything for that for professional wrestling. And that's what we have in mind. We want to always go out there regardless. And, myself and Cash, for years before the WWE, we worked in front of 20 people, 10 people, and sometimes less than that. So we're kind of used to it, but we still did it for the love of the game, as corny as that kind of sounds. But I think that's the reason that we've done so well so far. In the back of our minds, we want to make sure that everyone watching understands the reason we left the WWE to come to AEW is because we want to prove again that we are the best tag team in the world. And as humbly as I can muster up, we really believe that, and we honestly believe that. And with or without fans, we're going to prove it.
Yeah, like you said, luckily for us, we had a lot of time on the independents to wrestle in front of nobody and kind of get us prepared for it. So it's not that unusual. And then we had performance center shows, the PC shows, which sometimes there was no people in the crowd at all. Sometimes you had some of your coworkers in there that would make noise, but it wasn't much different than it is now. And shockingly, looking back on it, you think, man, I don't want to do this. This is just going to hurt. It sucks without a live crowd, but it isn't that bad, and it helps you adjust, and it gives you that uncomfortable silence that you need to learn to become better. And even though there's not a live crowd there, we know that we can have a great match for the people watching at home, because there's still those people, and they're still hopefully invested in reacting. And obviously we won't be able to hear it, but if we know that if you're good enough at what you do, you can kind of know how a live crowd would hopefully react, and that people watching at home are doing the same thing.
And then, I mean, you guys obviously are old school is not even the word for you guys. You guys are so old school, and it's been one of your things as a team. But kind of wrestling right now, well, I don't want to say wrestling. In AEW, there are a lot of tag teams, but in other companies, there's not really that many long-term tag teams. Who were each of your main influences kind of growing up that made you want to be a tag team wrestler?
We've talked quite a bit about this. We both have, individual influences and, some of the same, but for me, ultimately, as far as tag team wrestling goes, I don't think there's a better team. I don't think there's ever been a better team that worked as cohesively for as long as they did as Dennis and Bobby, the Midnight Express. They were incredible at what they did, and they realized how to work together, keep the matches fast-paced, keep the action up, but at the same time, they understood the psychology of tag team wrestling better than anybody. So first and foremost for me is Dennis and Bobby, tag team, and then obviously the ultimate comparison is Arn and Tully. I've got both tag teams. I've got multiple 30-disc sets of each tag team that we've both studied. So Arn and Tully are a great team, and then for my whole life, it's been Bret Hart. I'm infatuated with Bret Hart. I think that overall, he's the greatest of all time.
Yeah, that's kind of what started our bond, actually. Myself and Dax was Bret. There's always that question that if you grew up watching wrestling in the 90s, especially, there was are you a Bret or a Shawn guy? And remember, we were having that discussion, and we both, like I said, Bret, and he goes, man, I knew I liked you for a reason. And like, it was just kind of off from there. But for me, I'm not, surprisingly, you wouldn't know it from looking at me, but I'm not that old. I was born in 87. So my first memories of like watching tag team wrestling live was stuff like the Hart Foundation, the Rockers, and then some of the later 90s, early thousands with like the Dudleys and Edge and Christian and the Hardys, which inspired us a lot because they were two guys from a small town in North Carolina that kind of proved that you can make it out of these small towns. There's light at the end of the tunnel. But then the more I got into wrestling, the more I fell in love with it and became obsessed with it. I would go back and watch the older stuff, and that's when I discovered more of the Midnights and the rock and roll and guys like that who just embodied everything there was to be about tag team wrestling. And like, I want to have, like Dak said it the other day, I want to have a career like rock and roll, where these guys have been tagging together for 40 years or so, at least. Like, I want that. I want to leave a legacy as a tag team that nobody can touch. I want to do things that leave people in awe. I want to do things that inspire people. I want to do things that show other kids from small towns all over the world that they can make it out of there, and they can make it to wherever they want to go, even if it's not wrestling. If they have a dream and they think, I don't know if I can do that, I want them to know that it's possible. If we can do it, anybody can do it. We're sub 6 foot. We're not body guys. We know we're not going to step on stage at the Arnold anytime soon, but here we are, the world's best tag team. So,
well, Cash, I do actually want to ask you. You both mentioned Bret there. Specifically, you were both Bret guys, and you guys were at the Hall of Fame ceremony with the Hart Foundation, got put in the Hall of Fame, and obviously, Cash, you helped out with the situation, and I was there that night, and it was a very rough scene. I feel for a lot of the audience, because Bret's just this legendary guy who you just do not think deserves to have his kind of moment taken, and you stepped in very quickly along with other wrestlers. Can you talk a little bit about kind of, in that moment, having to kind of do something and think on your feet to make sure Bret could still have his moment?
In those moments, you don't really just react, and Bret means so much to myself and Dax that you just react, and you got to get there and make sure that he's okay and that the threat is out of the way, because Bret has overcome so much, and he'll never ask for sympathy because he doesn't want it, and he's one of the toughest men I've ever seen in my life. But he's overcome so much, and that was a very emotional night for him, and to have something like that happen, and then you don't know like what this guy's capable of. You don't know what he's thinking. You don't know what's going through his mind or what issues he has himself. And so a lot of us, we just did what we had to do. We just stepped in, and like, if you watch it back also, like, Dax immediately goes to Bret and he just makes sure that Bret's okay, like, which is the most important thing, just making sure Bret's in a good space. He's all right. His health is there. Like, there's no injuries. And then, for the rest of the situation, it's just we did what we had to do to kind of neutralize it, because the guy was a threat. The guy was dangerous, and he was still making threats on the way out. And there was no security, no police, nothing like that. It was just the wrestlers. Like, there was some referees, there was some talent, and this guy's still making threats. So you just kind of react. Like I said, you don't think about it. You just do what you got to do in that moment to make sure things are under control and people are safe. And that's just how it ended up happening.
And Dax, I want to ask you about, you brought up the Midnight Express there, and obviously you guys seem to be Jim Cornette's favorite wrestlers. He always talks about how much he loves you guys, even though he's fairly critical of most other people in AEW. Do you kind of feel like you are a kind of a weird kind of bridge for old school fans or people who like more old school tag wrestling, that's something that you guys can bring to the table now you're in AEW?
It's funny that you mentioned Jim Cornette, because we did the Jim Cornette podcast, and man, the next day that we walked into the actually it was in the hotel where all the AEW wrestlers were staying, and you could have, the scene in the movies, the typical scene in the movies where the record scratches and everything stops, everyone stares at you. That's exactly what happened.
Super awkward silence.
Yeah, so awkward. They were all so mad at us because we did Jim Cornette's podcast, and that's okay with us. We don't care. We're not, if we make friends, we make friends, and we have made a few.
Give us the heat.
But if they want to get mad at us because we're trying to make AEW a better place and make it more money, then we welcome that. But to answer your question, sorry I got off on a tangent there. I had my third cup of coffee.
Only three.
Yeah, so far. As far as being a bridge, I've never even looked at it like that, because myself and Cash, we've never sat back and said, oh, let's wrestle like this. Let's do this. We wrestle how we wrestle. We enjoy what we enjoy. And that style of wrestling, or the style of wrestling that we present, is just our style. I've never thought, honestly, we have thought, I hope we can impress Jim Cornette, or I hope we can impress Bret Hart. We have these matches and hope that the guys that we look up to do send us a text and say, that was incredible. That's an awesome accomplishment for us. But we've never put a match together and said, okay, well, back in the 80s, they would have done this. We put our match together and we figure out what we're going to do based on what we want to do and what we would enjoy as fans. And we do understand that times have changed, and we do understand that there's more of a fast-paced product. But we still try to make everything logical, make everything make sense, play within the rules, which is the most important thing to our matches. I wish you could see the time that myself and Cash put into making sure that we are, FTR following the rule, but also making it creative and making it special and making it fun and fast-paced and exciting. We put a lot of effort into every single match we've ever had, whether it was a house show, the main event TV show, or, in front of Toronto, in front of 20,000 people. So I've never thought of it like that. I'm glad you brought it up. It's kind of flattering, but we just wrestle the way we wrestle.
We've talked about it before, and we said it to Vince when we had a meeting, because we always got the Brain Busters comparison. And when we sat down, we said, look, we've never consciously said we want to be the next Brain Busters. We just wrestle a style that might remind people of that. It harkens back to a day where things were a little more gritty, a little more ugly, a little more realistic. So we want to be that bridge. We want to do something that can like Dak said, it can make sense. It can be realistic, but it can still have the touch of modern that people look for. But we want people to invest in a match as a whole, like all four guys, all five guys, because the ref included. We want the ref in there too. We want everybody involved in what we're doing, and emotionally. We don't just want what I call the car crash pops, where they just react because it looks like a car crash. Like, oh. We want people to care, like edge of their seats, like biting their fingernails, invested in the actual performers and what they're doing, not invested in what the performers are doing. It's not just the moves for us. It's just about, we said, we spend so much time on the intricacies and the smallest details, because we want it to mean more. We want it to mean something. We don't want it to just be thrown away just to get to something, to get it in. We want everything to have its purpose. So,
yeah, and
sorry. That's just
really quick, going off of what Cash just said, that goes back to earlier about you asking about us wrestling in front of, almost no fans. That's the thing, is we don't work for the pop. And I think at some point that got lost in wrestling. We don't work for the pop. Obviously, we want to pop the fans and we want to make them happy, but we work for the match. And so we don't have to go out there and do silly stuff to get cheap pops, because we're so secure in our work and we know how good we are. We work for the match and not for the pop. Sorry.
This is our ride. This is our ride. This is our roller coaster. We design it. So when we want a loop, we'll have a loop. If we want something to go straight up, straight down, we'll make it like that, because we're the architects of our roller coaster. We're not going to let anybody dictate that for us. But we're not doing it out of spite. We're doing it because we want you to not know where we're going. We want you to be invested and surprised. We want it to be like something where they can't say, "Oh, I know what's coming next. I know what's coming next." We want you to never have a clue. We want you to think you have a clue and then yank that away from you because it's more fun. Sorry. You can ask your next question. We can go on about this for hours.
Well, no, it's interesting you guys bring all this up, and the kind of the modern style and your style and old school. And one of the things that I was thinking about was during one of your matches the other week, they panned to the crowd, well, not the crowds, the empty seats, and there was Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson scouting at various sections. And it kind of got me to thinking, because look, people are talking about it online. They're saying, is there going to be a modern day Four Horsemen? Ric Flair endorsed it the other day. He said he'd love to see it in AEW, and you two are in everybody's list of what a modern day Four Horsemen would be. I guess my two-part question to that is, do you like the idea? And if you do, who else would you see in a modern day Four Horsemen with you guys?
I know that there'll never be another actual Four Horsemen. Again, it goes back to, we want to pay homage to something, but we don't want to rip off something. So I would love to do a group that follows in their footsteps, that kind of reminds people and grabs your attention, that kind of seizes all the headlines, that gets all the spotlight, because I want that. I want to bring that to us so we can put it on other people in the process. But oh man, I don't know if I have like a perfect incarnation of it. I know obviously we got to be in it because we're the only people that actually care about making people hate us. So I mean, maybe you do the Four Horsemen with just us two.
Yeah, call it the Four Horsemen, but just have you and I.
Yeah, we'll just do this.
Yeah. So you talked about Arn and Tully being in the crowd. Man, that was honestly a very sentimental moment for both of us. I got back to my hotel and we were texting with Bailey, actually, and she sent the picture and she said, "How incredible is this?" And I sat back and thought about it, and it made me very emotional, because those guys, they were sitting out in front of the cameras for the television show, but also at the same time, man, they they're big fans of ours, and that's something special to both of us. As far as Four Horsemen, same thing that Cash said. There's no way you can ever recreate the Four Horsemen. I mean, they tried to in WCW for years, and it just never materialized to the original first or second incarnation. But if I had to choose two other people to put in the group, man, there's so many talented guys there. I mean, I don't even know where I would start. You've got a great guy like MJF. You got a great guy like Wardlow. You got Adam Page quickly becoming one of our close buddies, but just because we're from the same area, we know each other. Shawn
Spears has only gotten to show a glimpse of what he's really capable of, what he's truly capable of. Still, like he's still so. I don't care how long he's been doing it. He's untapped potential right now.
Maybe it's just me, Cash, Arn, and Tully.
There you go. There's the four. You got it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I want to ask you guys as well. There's not a lot of people in the world who have worked for Tony Khan and Vince McMahon. You're now two of those guys. What is it like working for Tony Khan, the management style, the kind of collaboration that you guys get to have, the input?
Fun, streamlined. I feel like it's finding its groove more as the shows go on, because it's still in its infancy right now. It's brand new. It's been on TV for less than a year. Like it had a few pay-per-views before, but then it was only fully announced January 1st, 2020, right? is that the right year? 2019? I'm bad with dates, but
2019.
It's only been on TV for, okay, yeah. So it's only been on TV for less than a year still. And it's every week. And I'm not just saying this because we're the best tag team on the planet and we're on their TV. Every week I see it getting better and people finding their groove and people getting established and seeing what works and what doesn't and not being afraid to admit when something's not working and switching it. Like there's no ego there. There's no stubbornness there. There's no, like, this is what I want, so this is how it is. It's, hey, what are you thinking? What are you thinking here? Like, and I don't want to take this away from, Dax might elaborate on them more, but we get texts from all the guys that, are kind of in charge there, or like Tony himself, and they'll say, hey, what are you guys thinking for this week or this week or this week? Because they want the input, because they know that the talent knows themselves better than anybody else. So if they're going to have an idea, like, why not just ask?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't want to come off as bitter towards WWE, because we are not bitter at all. We weren't bitter when we were there. We made the best of every situation, but it honestly is night and day. I think the biggest difference is Tony and AEW are not afraid of being pro wrestling. They embrace pro wrestling. They embrace the qualities that pro wrestling brings. They embrace that phrase, and they love pro wrestling. And I think Vince loves pro wrestling too. But I think
Vince is more pro wrestling than anybody.
Yeah, but I think he wants it to be bigger and more and grander than his perception of pro wrestling. But with Tony and with AEW, they're not afraid of that. They like I said, they embrace pro wrestling. And it's easier it's very busy on the television days, but it's easier to get in contact and speak with Tony than it is with Vince, because Vince, they have 30 writers that don't belong there. They have 30 writers that are getting paid a ton of money and sitting in first class seats while we're sitting in coach.
Probably listening to this shivering in fear right now.
Yeah, shivering in fear because they're afraid to go talk to Vince. They're afraid to see him face to face. They don't even want to be known that they work there so they can keep collecting their paycheck. So, like, it's such a broken system there. And even we've said this before in interviews. We talked with Vince, our last meeting with Vince. He apologized because we had been sitting all these pitches in and he had never seen them. Because the writers are too afraid they were too afraid, and some of the producers too are too afraid to approach him with different ideas. And he apologized for the system being broken. And it's a broken system, and they've just got too many people. They've got too many people, wanting to put their ideas into the pot. Too many
cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah. But in AEW, you have one man in charge. You've got a few other people around that one man who aren't afraid to give ideas, and he's not afraid to listen to ideas. And I think that's again, just to sum everything up that I'm elaborating on now, AEW and Tony Khan are not afraid of pro wrestling. They embrace it, they love it, and they love being called pro wrestling.
And I guess the other thing I want to ask you as we kind of wind down here before we talk about the big 8-man tag tonight, I do quickly need to ask you about the Undertaker. He obviously kind of announced his retirement a couple of weeks ago. What are you? Have either of you got a favorite memory of Taker, whether it was with him or watching him?
We never really had a whole lot of interaction with him. There is one memory that I won't talk about because it's actually of Dax. But yeah. Like he was at the Performance Center training for a little bit, and just hearing him talk, like hearing how he sees things and how his psychology works, it's beautiful. And then I remember like he was watching one of the groups of the less experienced guys, not even less experienced, I guess. They were featured on a lot of the television shows and the NXT shows, but he was like, the selling just isn't like where it should be. You're not getting sympathy. Like it's just, and he just like pointed to me and asked me to hop in there, like start selling for a guy. And he didn't. I don't think he even knew who I was at this point. Like it was his first day there, basically. He was just watching, and I remember just like selling around and bumping and trying to get sympathy, but show life still, and all these things that like I've been taught from the very beginning. And when we got done, he goes, "That is how you sell. That's how you You make somebody work for what they need to get, but you get sympathy when they get it. And just hearing a guy like him who's had a career that he's had and has the respect that he has from everybody universally across the board, for him to say like, hey, this guy gets it, that meant a lot to me.
Yeah. For me, I was watching I was up in the lounge in the Performance Center. Surprisingly, I was alone because no one else loves professional wrestling there. And I was watching Brett versus Taker. I had no clue that Taker was there. And he come upstairs and he caught me watching the match from One Night Only pay-per-view. And he sat there and he talked about some of the nuances and the psychology that went into it. That was pretty cool. And also, I have a picture with that he was holding my daughter, and I took a picture with him holding my daughter when she was very little. But he's a great guy, an incredible performer, knows what he's talking about, knows the business. But now it's FTR's time. It's our time. It's our time to take his legacy and take his spot. So yeah, go ahead and it's okay to step down, brother.
And I mean, the thing is, tonight, the big 8-man tag on Fyter Fest Night 2, it feels big. It's you guys and the Young Bucks teaming up to take on the Lucha Brothers and Butcher and Blade, and it feels like a big match. What can people expect tonight when they tune in?
Well, it's the first time that FTR and the Young Bucks have been in the ring officially together in a match. And I think that moment is huge because of the last 4 years or 5 years, the people have dreamed about the match that FTR and Young Bucks are going to have, and this is the first time we've ever stepped in the ring together. And then on top of that, you've got an incredibly talented tag team like Lucha Brothers, who don't know the rules of tag team wrestling, but we're there to teach them anyway. That they actually have to do hand-to-hand tag. You can't just come in when you want to. But they're still incredibly talented. And then the dark horses of the whole tag team division, the Butcher and the Blade. I have a feeling that this match tonight will steal the night, the whole night across the board for both shows, and you're going to see some fun, interesting, logical things. But overall, at least when myself and Cash are in the ring, you're going to see some fists being thrown, some physicality, and some ass kicking.
Yeah, it is big. You said it feels big. It is big because whether people realize it or not, or how it may take years for people to look back and realize the implications that it had, but there's 4 teams in this match tonight that could help redefine what tag team wrestling is and how it's perceived right now. You got ourselves, best tag team in the world. You got the Young Bucks, the so-called best tag team in the world, and we're teaming up against the Lucha Brothers, who can do things that I've never even dreamt of ever attempting. And then you got, like you said, the dark horses, the Butcher and the Blade, 2 guys that they're just rough and they're rugged and they have this great look about them, and they get it. And there's a lot of stories to be told here. There's a lot of branches we can go down, a lot of paths we can take, and there's just a lot of seeds to be planted right here that could possibly change the face of tag team wrestling forever. And that's just in one match tonight. So it's going to be exciting. Everybody wants to see what we can do against each other when it comes to us and the Bucks. But let's see what we can do together tonight, because that'll happen when it's supposed to happen on our time. We waited long enough. We're not afraid to wait a little bit longer and make them keep waiting, because we call our own shots now. We don't have to answer to anybody. We don't have to do what anybody tells us. We get to just do what we want to do when we want to do it, and that's a good feeling. So let's we'll take our time. We'll get there, but tonight is going to be something that's going to be special. And like I said, it's just the first step in something that's going to change tag team wrestling.
The last thing I want to ask you guys, because obviously everybody's kind of looking to the post-COVID era when crowds are back and there's big arenas again. I know the obvious answer here that you're probably going to give us, but are there a couple of matches that you're thinking about in your head for down the line that will, in front of an arena at a pay-per-view that you're kind of salivating over, that you're thinking about?
First, we got to smack the piss out of Kenny Omega for pouring out our beer. So, first and foremost, we said we're the best tag team on the planet for a long time. We proved it time and time again. But right now, our sights obviously are going to be set on tag team gold. That's when you're the champions, you get the pay raise, you get all the perks that come with it. So we want to be AEW Tag Team Champions. We want to just run through the entire division and have anybody that wants to step up to us, because that's what we do. We prove it in the ring. We can prove it wherever you want, but when it comes down to it, we want to get in that ring and lace up our boots and do what we do.
Yeah, and the advantage that we have, as far as not being officially signed yet, is we can look broader than AEW. I mean, obviously the match everyone's waiting for is the Young Bucks, and we're waiting for that too, because after we beat Kenny Omega and Adam Page and become the AEW Tag Team Champions, the next step is to beat the Young Bucks and put on the match that everyone's been waiting for, and then officially we can be called the greatest tag team in the world. But on top of all that, man, there are guys that we're excited to face and to test our skills against, and that's like the North. Those guys are an incredible tag team. We look forward to working with those guys. Obviously, we've been getting, for a few years, we've gotten tagged a lot about, FTR and the Briscoes. And those guys are from Sandy Hook, and that's okay, but we're from North Carolina, and I guarantee you, I promise you, with all 10 of my fingers and all 10 of Dash's fingers, we can beat the hell out of them easy. But I would love to test my skill and grit against them. And then across the pond over in New Japan, Juice Robinson and Dave Finlay. That's a team that we are looking forward to working with. Tama Tonga and T, his brother. Ultimately we want to stack up tag team gold. So before we're done, before everything's all said and done, people can say, and you know what? Tully and Arn were the greatest, or one of the greatest. Midnight Express are one of the greatest, but FTR is the best we've ever seen.
I want to be world beaters. I want to have a picture like Ultimo Dragon where he's just draped in championships. We want every tag team title imaginable. So that's the goal.
I feel like that's going to happen. It's inevitable. Guys, I want to thank you so much for your time. People can check out Fighter Fest Night 2, TNT in the States, Fight TV internationally. Dax, Cash, thank you very much.
Yeah, dude.
Thanks for having us.